In early 1973, in the heart of Hong Kong, inside an ordinary film studio, Bruce Lee engaged in the last real fight of his life. This wasn't a choreographed scene. It wasn't a tourist attraction show. This was a raw, unfiltered struggle that pushed the legend to his absolute limits. The footage captured that day remained locked in a vault for more than half a century. Because those who witnessed that moment knew this wasn't just a fight, it was a moment that could forever change Bruce Lee's legacy. This is a story the world almost never heard. The story of a fight that took place in Bruce Lee's final months, just weeks before his death, against a mysterious opponent who pushed him to the very edge. If those cameras hadn't been rolling that day, this moment would have been lost to the dust of history. Some say it was the fight that changed him. Others claim it was the moment that revealed Bruce Lee's true power and vulnerability simultaneously. But one thing is certain. What happened in that studio on that humid spring evening would remain hidden from the world for 50 years. The year 1973 was one of both triumphs and inner turmoil for Bruce Lee. The Way of the Dragon had just been completed, and Bruce had become a global superstar. Hollywood had finally noticed him. The filming of Enter the Dragon was finished, and everything was set for the international breakthrough he had long awaited. But only a few close to him knew the price of this success. Bruce was overworking himself, training 18 hours a day, filming, preparing stunt choreography, and continuing to develop his own fighting philosophy. His body had reached its limits. Back pain was at its peak. Headaches were becoming increasingly frequent. But Bruce Lee was a man who didn't know how to stop. To him, rest was weakness. During this period, while preparations for a new project were underway at the Golden Harvest studio, an unexpected visitor arrived. His name was Wong Shun Leung, but in Hong Kong's underground fighting circles, he was known by a different name: the King of Talking Hands. He was a Wing Chun master, one of Bruce's former training brothers from his youth, under Ip Man's tutelage. But Wong hadn't come for a friendly reunion. Wong Shun Leung was in his late 40s, a compact, powerful man whose unassuming appearance belied his devastating fighting ability. He had spent decades in BMO challenges, real, unsanctioned fights where reputations were made and broken. He had never lost a serious fight. His hands were weapons, hardened through years of wooden dummy training and real combat. His eyes carried the weight of 100 victories. The tension between Bruce and Wong had been simmering for years. When Bruce left Hong Kong for America, some in the traditional Wing Chun community saw it as abandonment. When he began publicly criticizing traditional martial arts as too rigid, calling them the classical mess, it was seen as betrayal. And when Bruce created Jeet Kune Do, declaring it superior to classical styles, it was considered heresy. Wong had remained silent through all of this, but when word reached him that Bruce was back in Hong Kong, making films that portrayed traditional martial artists as inferior, something inside him snapped. This wasn't just about martial arts anymore. It was about honor, lineage, and respect for the masters who came before. On a Tuesday morning, Wong Shun Leung walked through the gates of Golden Harvest Studio. He wore simple clothes, a white shirt and dark trousers, but there was something in his bearing that made security hesitate before approaching him. He moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove to strangers, only to one specific person. Bruce was in the middle of reviewing footage from his latest film when his assistant rushed in, face pale. "Sifu, Wong Shun Leung is here. He's asking for you." Bruce's expression didn't change, but those who knew him well could see the slight tension in his jaw. He knew why Wong had come. This wasn't a social visit. "Where is he?" Bruce asked calmly. "Stage 2. He's waiting." Bruce stood, removing his jacket. "Tell Raymond to clear the soundstage, and tell him to have cameras ready." "Cameras? But Sifu—" "Just do it," Bruce said quietly. "If this is going to happen, there needs to be a record." When Bruce entered Stage 2, he found Wong standing in the center of the empty space, hands clasped behind his back, the picture of traditional martial arts composure. The two men hadn't seen each other in nearly 15 years, but the recognition was instant. "SEO Leung," Wong said, using Bruce's childhood name. "You've done well for yourself." "Wong Sifu," Bruce replied, bowing slightly. "It's been a long time. Too long. Long enough for you to forget where you came from." The accusation hung in the air. Bruce's face remained neutral. "I haven't forgotten anything. I've evolved." "Evolved?" Wong's voice carried a sharp edge. "Is that what you call it? Disrespecting everything Ip Man taught us? Telling the world that Wing Chun is obsolete? That traditional martial arts are worthless?" "I never said worthless," Bruce corrected. "I said incomplete. There's a difference." "Then show me." Wong stepped forward, dropping into a perfect Wing Chun stance. "Show me how your complete system handles the incomplete one." By now, word had spread through the studio. Crew members, actors, and martial artists who happened to be on the lot were gathering at the edges of the soundstage. Raymond Chow appeared from the producer's booth, his face grave. He had already ordered cameras set up, understanding the historical significance of what was about to unfold. Among those watching was Dan Inosanto, Bruce's close friend and training partner who had flown to Hong Kong to visit. Years later, Dan would describe this moment in hushed tones. "I had trained with Bruce for years. I'd seen him spar with champions, wrestlers, boxers, karatekas, but I had never seen him face someone from his own lineage, someone who knew the same techniques, the same principles. This wasn't just a fight. It was a confrontation with his own past." Also present was Betty Ting Pei, the actress who would later be with Bruce on the day of his death. She had arrived for a script reading and found herself caught in this unexpected drama. "The air was electric," she would later recall. "You could feel the history between them, the unresolved tension. This wasn't about winning or losing. This was about something much deeper." Bruce removed his shirt, revealing the lean, sculpted physique that had become iconic. But those watching closely could see something others missed, the slight stiffness in his movements as he warmed up. The back injury that had plagued him for months was evident to trained eyes. He was in pain, though he would never admit it. Raymond Chow approached both men, assuming the role of reluctant referee. "Gentlemen, if this must happen, we need ground rules." "No rules," Wong said flatly. "This is BMO, challenge fighting the old way." "Then we need boundaries," Bruce interjected. "No eye strikes, no throat strikes. When someone yields, it's over." Wong smiled, but it was cold. "I accept those terms. But know this, SEO Leung, I won't yield easily." "Neither will I." Raymond raised his hand. The cameras were rolling, 3 different angles capturing everything. "This is of your own free will. Both of you acknowledge that." Both men nodded. Raymond's hand dropped. "Begin." The opening moments were unlike anything most observers had ever seen. Both fighters stood in variations of Wing Chun's basic stance, but the similarities ended there. Wong's stance was classical, perfect, textbook Ip Man lineage. Bruce's was modified, slightly wider, weight more evenly distributed, influenced by fencing and boxing. For 10 long seconds, neither man moved. They were reading each other, processing decades of training through the lens of the present moment. Wong saw in Bruce's stance all the modifications, all the departures from tradition. Bruce saw in Wong's posture the living embodiment of everything he had moved beyond. Wong attacked first. He closed the distance with a burst of chain punches, the fundamental Wing Chun technique, but executed with such speed and precision that even Bruce's exceptional reflexes were tested. The sound of Wong's fists cutting through the air was like a machine gun. Bruce's response was pure Jeet Kune Do. Instead of meeting the chain punches with traditional Wing Chun deflections, he used a boxing slip, leaning away from the center line, then countered with a low sidekick to Wong's lead leg, a technique that had no place in classical Wing Chun. Wong absorbed the kick and immediately shifted, trapping Bruce's extended leg and attempting a takedown. But Bruce had trained with wrestlers and judoka. He sprawled back, maintaining his balance, and as Wong committed to the takedown, Bruce rotated and delivered a hammer fist to the back of Wong's head. It wasn't a full power strike. Both men were still feeling each other out, but it marked the first point scored. The crowd murmured in appreciation. They separated, circling, both breathing slightly harder now, both recalculating. "You've learned some things," Wong acknowledged, "but can you handle this?" What came next was a masterclass in traditional Wing Chun. Wong unleashed a combination that Ip Man himself would have been proud of: bilji strikes, lap sao traps, and devastating low kicks, all flowing seamlessly from one to the next. This was Wing Chun not as it appeared in demonstrations, but as it was meant to be applied in real combat. Bruce defended admirably, his own Wing Chun background allowing him to read the attacks. But Wong was relentless, pressing forward with the aggressive forward pressure that defined the style. He was proving a point. In the right hands, traditional martial arts were far from obsolete. Then Bruce did something that shocked everyone, including Wong. He stopped retreating. Instead, he jammed Wong's forward pressure, closing to trapping range, and the two engaged in Chi Sao, the sensitivity training exercise that was the heart of Wing Chun. But this wasn't practice. This was Chi Sao at combat speed, both men's hands moving in a blur, feeling for openings, creating and exploiting gaps in each other's defenses. For those watching who understood Wing Chun, this was breathtaking. It was like watching two grandmasters play chess at lightning speed, each move countering the last, each adjustment met with another adjustment. Dan Inosanto would later say, "In that moment, I saw Bruce access the deepest parts of his Wing Chun training. All the hours he spent with Ip Man, all the Chi Sao sessions, all the traditional training he supposedly abandoned, it was all still there, integrated into his Jeet Kune Do. He hadn't rejected Wing Chun. He had transcended it." The Chi Sao exchange lasted perhaps 20 seconds before Wong suddenly broke the pattern with a phoenix eye fist, a one-knuckle punch aimed at Bruce's solar plexus. Bruce twisted, took the strike on his ribs instead of his center, and immediately countered with his signature technique, the 1-inch punch. At this range, with this much power, delivered to Wong's chest, the effect was devastating. Wong was driven backward, his feet leaving the ground for a moment before he landed hard, stumbling to maintain balance. The crowd gasped. First blood, metaphorically speaking. But Wong Shun Leung hadn't become the king of talking hands by giving up when hit. He charged back in, abandoning pure Wing Chun for a more eclectic approach. Throws from judo, kicks from northern styles, punches from Western boxing. He was showing Bruce that he too could adapt, that traditional masters weren't as rigid as Bruce claimed. The fight entered a new phase, more brutal, more desperate. These weren't young men anymore. Bruce was 32, Wong in his late 40s. Every exchange took its toll. Bruce's back was screaming in pain, though his face never showed it. Wong's hands, despite their conditioning, were starting to swell from the impacts. They clinched against the wall, both trying to gain positional advantage. In the struggle, Wong managed to secure a standing arm lock, putting tremendous pressure on Bruce's injured back. Bruce's face went white. For a moment, it seemed he might tap out. But then, something extraordinary happened. Bruce, instead of trying to power out of the lock, relaxed completely. He used a technique from judo, yielding to create an opening. And when Wong adjusted his grip to maintain control, Bruce slipped out and simultaneously delivered a knee to Wong's midsection. They broke apart, both men visibly exhausted now. Blood was flowing from Bruce's lip. Wong's eye was starting to swell. Both were breathing heavily, their bodies covered in sweat under the harsh studio lights. "Enough," Raymond Chow said, stepping forward. "This has gone far enough." "No," both men said simultaneously. They looked at each other, and something passed between them. An understanding. This fight wasn't about proving superiority anymore. It was about mutual respect, about two warriors testing each other at the highest level. They engaged one final time. The exchange lasted perhaps 30 seconds, but it was poetry. Every technique crisp, every movement purposeful, every counter perfect. They moved like they were reading each other's minds, like they were participants in a dance they both knew by heart. And then, by mutual unspoken agreement, they stopped. Both men stepped back, bowed to each other, and it was over. The studio erupted in applause, but Bruce and Wong seemed oblivious. They stood, chests heaving, bloody and bruised, but somehow transformed. "Your Jeet Kune Do," Wong said quietly. "It's real. It works. I came here to prove you wrong, but—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Ip Man would have been proud of what you've become." Those words, coming from Wong Shun Leung, meant everything. Bruce's eyes glistened with emotion. "And you showed me," Bruce replied, "that traditional martial arts, in the hands of a true master, are timeless. I never meant to disrespect what we learned. I only wanted to keep it alive by letting it evolve." They embraced, two old training brothers, the years of tension dissolving in that moment. What happened next was extraordinary. They spent the next hour sitting together, discussing techniques, philosophy, sharing insights. Wong asked about Jeet Kune Do's principles. Bruce wanted to know about Wong's Beimo experiences. It was a meeting of minds that had been 15 years overdue. Raymond Chow watched from his booth, then turned to his head of security. "Seal this footage. My personal vault. No one sees it without my permission." "But sir," the man protested, "this is incredible. This could destroy both their legacies," Raymond finished. Wong's reputation as an undefeated champion, Bruce's image as an invincible martial artist. The world isn't ready to see their heroes bleed. Dan Inosanto approached Bruce as Wong was leaving. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Bruce winced as he moved his shoulder. "That was necessary. I needed to know if Jeet Kune Do could stand up to someone who knew all the same techniques I grew up with. Someone who could counter my counters. And I learned that I still have much to learn." Wong Shun Leung left the studio that day and never spoke publicly about the fight. In private, to his closest students, he would sometimes say, "I once fought Bruce Lee. Neither of us won. Neither of us lost. But we both left that room better than we entered it." Bruce Lee died just 2 months later, on July 20th, 1973. Wong attended the funeral, standing in the back, watching thousands mourn a man they knew from screens. But Wong mourned the man he had known in those intense, honest moments of combat. A man of extraordinary skill and even greater character. The footage remained sealed for decades. Raymond Chow took the secret to his grave in 2018. But before his death, he left instructions for the footage to be preserved and, at the right time, shared. In 2023, exactly 50 years after Bruce Lee's death, during a comprehensive digitization of Golden Harvest's archives, film preservationist Dr. Karen Lau discovered the footage. The canister was marked with Raymond Chow's personal seal and a note, to be opened 50 years after Bruce's passing. The discovery sparked intense debate. Should it be released? Would it tarnish two legends or enhance their legacies? The Bruce Lee Foundation was consulted. Wong Shun Leung's family, he had passed in 1997, was contacted. Martial arts historians weighed in. Finally, a decision was made. Controlled release with full context, showing not just the fight, but the aftermath, the reconciliation, the mutual respect. When the footage finally surfaced, the response was overwhelming. Millions watched as Bruce Lee, not the invincible movie star, but the real martial artist, faced a genuinely dangerous opponent from his own lineage. They saw him struggle. They saw him hurt. They saw him adapt and persevere. And they saw him embrace his opponent afterward with genuine respect. The comments section exploded. This doesn't diminish Bruce Lee. It makes him more real, more human, more inspirational. The fact that he could fight at this level just 2 months before his death, while injured, is incredible. Wong Shun Leung deserves recognition. This wasn't a beating. This was two masters testing each other. Dan Inosanto, now in his late 80s, was interviewed about the footage. "I was there," he said, tears in his eyes. "I saw my friend and teacher tested in ways the world never knew. And I saw him prove that Jeet Kune Do wasn't just philosophy. It was real, practical, and effective. But more than that, I saw him prove that evolution and tradition don't have to be enemies." Dr. Karen Lau, who discovered the footage, noted something profound. This fight happened in Bruce's final months. He was injured, exhausted, and carrying the weight of global fame. Yet he still accepted a challenge from his past. That's not the behavior of someone running from tradition. That's someone who never stopped testing himself. The footage has become a teaching tool in martial arts schools worldwide, not because it shows perfect technique, but because it shows something more valuable. Two martial artists from the same lineage, taking different paths, coming together to test their respective truths, and finding mutual respect in honest combat. Perhaps most remarkably, it reveals the complete picture of Bruce Lee's philosophy. He didn't reject tradition. He honored it by refusing to let it stagnate. Wong Shun Leung didn't resist evolution. He proved that in the right hands, classical methods remain devastating. In the end, the story of this fight isn't about who won or lost. The footage shows clearly that both men landed significant strikes. Both men had moments of dominance. Both men proved their respective approaches valid. It's about two warriors who pushed each other to their limits and emerged transformed. It's about the moment when philosophy met reality, and both were validated. It's about Bruce Lee, not as a superhuman legend, but as a human being who dedicated every fiber of his existence to martial arts excellence, right up until his final months. If those cameras hadn't been rolling that day, this story would have died with Raymond Chow. But they were rolling, and now the world can see what really happened when Bruce Lee faced his past, his lineage, and himself in one final honest test of his life's work. This wasn't just Bruce Lee's last real fight. It was the culmination of everything he had learned, taught, and believed. And it showed the world that true martial arts mastery lies not in never being challenged, but in having the courage to be tested, the humility to acknowledge worthy opponents, and the wisdom to find growth in combat.